What's going on, Midnighters? On guard! Welcome back to Tropes with Travis, the show where we have the fiction to feed your addiction. And on tonight's episode, we're going to cover the Knight in Shining Armor. However, it takes more than shining armor to be a knight. In order to better understand this trope, we're going to take a look at what the trope means, where it originated, and what it looks like today. Knights in shining armor are a staple trope in our culture and is one of the most easily recognizable thanks to Disney, the rise of tabletop RPGs, and this.
From the field of the future, a new king will come to save the world of the past.
Now, to be a knight in shining armor is pretty simple, if you consider exhibiting bravery, honor, and self-control at all times to be simple. Of course, whether or not that's easy is another question altogether. Again, a knight must have a high amount of self-control, so no killing sprees or random whoring sprees. Yeah, here's looking at you, Zevran. A knight must be honorable in all situations, no backstabbing, no betrayals, or killing a defenseless enemy. It sounds like I maybe shouldn't be looking at the knights from Game of Thrones as a model for these, but rather than point out the flaws of knighthood in different media, let's talk about the final trait a typical knight displays. Bravery. A knight must remain courageous in even the most perilous of situations. I mean, this trope would be a lot less interesting if the knights were constantly running away from the dragons, right?
Run away! Run away!
That may be a lot to think about, but we can't slow down now. This next part's going to contain some background information about the trope. What does that mean? It's time to take a look at where the trope originated. Historically speaking, the idea of knighthood originated in France, more specifically, the 11th century. Knights were originally referred to as chevaliers, or literally speaking, a man of aristocratic standing and probably of noble ancestry who is capable of, if called upon, equipping himself with a war horse and the arms of heavy cavalrymen, and who has been through certain rituals that make him what he is. Long story short, knights were often nobles who trained to become professional soldiers that wore heavy plate armor and rode on horses into battle. Quite the far cry from the way we see knights portrayed in a lot of modern media, right?
Run away!
That leads us to an important question. If knights were just professional soldiers, why do we see them as shining beacons of goodness? Well, that can be answered by a certain code that came into play in the 12th century. Yep, you may have guessed it, I'm talking about the chivalric code. Now, the code itself consists of 10 virtues that a knight is supposed to live their life based upon. And we could spend a long time talking about this, but that would take a while. The most important thing you need to know is that the code is the basis behind the knights acting the way they do. It was also the period of time where courtly love was established, so then young maidens would start to swoon and dream of a handsome knight fighting for their love and honor. But that's enough about where the trope came from. It's time to stop looking at the past and start living in the present. Now we're going to take a look at some of my favorite examples from different media. The first example is one of my favorites. We're going to talk about the Knights of the Cross from the book series, The Dresden Files. They're an order of 3 knights, whom each wield a sword that possesses a nail from the crucifixion of Christ. They're the ultimate good guys, and no less badass for it. All 3 of them display countless examples of bravery and honor in combat, as well as self-control in situations outside of fighting. Especially my main man, Michael Carpenter. This man will stare down dragons, beat down demons, and still take the time to check and make sure you're okay. Of course, I could spend hours gushing about the Knights of the Cross. Michael Carpenter. But let's take a look at my other example. The second example that I would like to take a look at is from one of my all-time favorite video game series, Dragon Age. There is actually a group of professional soldiers in the fictional country called Orlais that correspond very closely with our real-life knights. What are they called? Well, they're called chevaliers. Sound familiar yet? Maybe even as something you heard about earlier?
Run away!
Yep. Well, those chevaliers are professional soldiers whom are supposed to adhere to a strict code of honor. A notable example, of course, is your companion in Dragon Age 2, Aveline. Now, I know that Aveline technically isn't a chevalier, but she fits all the aspects of the trope perfectly, and she was trained in the same style as them from her father. Let's not forget, she is brave, honorable, and with some degree of difficulty, exhibits self-control. All situations involving a certain guardsman notwithstanding. This leads us to my final example, which may seem controversial to some of you. I am talking, of course, about the Knights of the Jedi Order. Now, before I have anyone jump on and say, "Screw you, they're space samurai," slow down. If we take a look at the Jedi Order and their code, their behavior, and their ideals that they're supposed to strive towards, all three of those look an awful lot like what a typical knight would also strive to be. A notable example from this order is Anakin Skywalker. Oh, wait a minute. Ben Kenobi! Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah! He exhibits bravery in terrifying situations and acts honorably for the most part. He also shows great amounts of self-control. I mean, he would have to in order to not cut up Anakin before he did the movies. There's so much love about this well-known trope, and I hope you enjoyed your foray into the Knight in Shining Armor. Until next time, everyone, have a good night. Damn right.
Thank you for watching. You have a good night.
Damn right.